Alright guys, I am back again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Deer Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 2 of my Dark States Drajeweled deck. So version 2 is everything through the additional special set, so through a fraction of the booster set 11. And this deck has actually received a smaller upgrade compared to some of the other decks, but still a very welcome one nonetheless. The deck basically does the same things that it did before, except better. It can more easily get the 5 attacks per turn more consistently, and it's a bit lighter on resources now as well. So, not anything real crazy, but still a very welcome upgrade for the deck. So, as always, we'll be going through the deck real fast, and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So, starting first with the right deck, we have our Grade 0 starter, which is Julius Draco Kid. So when he's rolled upon, if you want a second, draw a card. Same old starter skill. Next for the grade 1, we have Jewel Core Dragon. So he has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is rolled upon by Demonic Stone Dragon Jewel Neil, you call this card to Rearguard Circle. And then his second auto ability when he's on Rearguard Circle says when this unit attacks or boosts, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until the end of that battle, and at the end of that battle, you put this unit into your soul. So he can just pop out of your soul when you ride over top of him, and then he gains 5k for his attack or boost that turn, which is usually an attack most of the time. And then he goes right back into your soul. So he gives you some temporary card advantage, letting you get another attack in early game for free, basically, and then you put him right back into your soul to keep that grade 1 in there for Drajeweled skill later. So next for the grade 2, we have Demonic Stone Dragon Jewel Neil. So his auto ability when he's on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle says when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, you soul charge 1. So he doesn't end up on Rearguard most of the time, but works on Vanguard Circle as well, so if his attack hits when you attack with him on turn 2, you can get a free soul charge out of it. And then he has his second auto ability that says when this unit is rolled upon by a unit with Drajeweled in its card name, you soul charge 1, and if your soul has 3 or more cards with different grades, you draw a card. So just from your ride deck alone, you should have the 3 different grades in your soul, so you should always get that draw off of it. And yet again, it just gives you 1 more soul charge. So having built up as many cards in your soul as you can to help pay for Drajeweled's cost repeatedly every turn. So then lastly for the grade 3, we have Demonic Jewel Dragon Drajeweled. So he has an activate ability that says once per turn, you can counterblast 1 to soul charge 2, and if all of the cards soul charged have different grades, you may draw a card. So obviously getting that draw is random chance depending on what you happen to soul charge off the top of your deck, but we are running as close to even of a grade ratio as we can in this deck, so hopefully you can get the draw off of that. If you can't, you at least still get the 2 extra cards in your soul that can help pay for his second cost, which is his auto ability that says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can soul blast 4 cards with different grades to choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and until end of turn, increase or decrease its power to 1, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets critical plus 1. So this ability lets you reduce the power of your opponent's Vanguard all the way down to 1, effectively making them have to guard for an amount equal to whatever you're attacking at. So if you attack for, like 20,000, they have to guard for 20,000. He also can potentially give himself an extra crit, so he might have that crit pressure as well, assuming your opponent is at least at grade 3. Now you have to soul blast 4 cards with different grades in order to do this, so you have to have a grade 0 through 3 set up in your soul, which again your ride deck will give you grade 0 through 2 automatically, so you just got to get a grade 3 into your soul one way or another, either through his first ability or one of your Rearguard's abilities, and that'll at least give you 1 usage of this skill. And then you want to be able to fill up your soul as much as possible using all your other skills in this deck to be able to consistently use this every turn. So it does require quite a bit of soul management in order to consistently use this, but being able to knock your opponent's power down that much every turn and effectively increase the required guarding for all of your attacks is definitely a very, very powerful skill. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off are the grade 3s. We of course have our 3 additional copies of Demonic Jewel Dragon Drajeweled, just for our Persona ride purposes. Next up, we also have 3 copies of Demonic Jewel Dragon Ristal Gaoler. So he has an auto ability that says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you Soul Blast 4 or more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn, you can put a card from your hand into your soul to draw a card and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So this skill is basically a free hand filter plus a retire to one of your opponent's rear guards. So it doesn't generate any card advantage for you, but it does decrease your opponent's card advantage by potentially taking out one of their rear guards. It also lets you put any card from your hand into your soul. So if you have a grade in your hand that you don't have in your soul, you can put it in there to set up to potentially pay Drajeweled's skill cost again next turn. And of course you will get to draw to replace that card as well, so you don't have to lose out on any cards from your hand. So overall, just a pretty useful card for this deck. So then lastly for the grade 3s, we also have 3 copies of Merciless Count Botus. So its auto ability says when you Soul Blast 2 or more at the same time for the cost of your card's ability, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. And if you Soul Blast 3 or more at the same time, you can Counterblast 1 to choose a card from your drop, put it in your soul, and then choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards with the same grade as that card and retire it. So since you'll be Soul Blasting 4 with Drajeweled's ability, this skill will go off in full every time you use its ability. So you'll get the extra 5,000 power, making him at least an 18k base. And if you can pay the Counterblast, then you can put a card from your drop back into your soul, so you can effectively reduce Drajeweled's cost down to a Soul Blast 3, since you can put one of the cards you Soul Blasted out right back in. And then you can also potentially pick off one of your opponent's rear guards if they have one that is the same grade as the card that you stuck back into your soul from your drop. So another control option for this deck, as well as just being a pretty decent beat stick and a nice resource resupplier in this deck as well. Which also there is a play that you can do with this card using one of the grade 2s that is kind of a spicy tech that I have that I'll go through later. But yeah, overall still a pretty useful card. So that is all of the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we got 3 copies of Demonic Stone Dragon Rock Argor. So he has 2 auto abilities. First one says once per turn, when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, if your soul has 4 more cards with different grades, this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. And then his second auto ability says when you Soul Blast 4 or more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can Counterblast 1 and stand this unit. So this is one of your primary attackers in this deck. His first ability can give him an extra 10k as long as you have your soul set up to use Drajeweled's ability that turn. So he'll be a 20k attacker that can also restand himself with his second ability, so he can give you a 4th and potentially a 5th attack per turn as well if you have 2 copies of him in your front row. So a very important card for the deck. He has a Counterblast cost, which this deck isn't quite as bad on Counterblast as it was before, but it is still a little on the Counterblast heavy side. Which we did reduce the number of copies of this card from 4 down to 3, because we actually have another restanding rearguard in this deck now. And the other restander is cost free, so that can help you more consistently get your attack count up every turn without having to eat through so many resources. But overall, this still is a very important card for this deck. Being able to hit much better numbers than the other restander as well is also a very nice thing. Now that does rely on your opponent already being at grade 3, so if you go first it can't work turn 3. But every turn after that, he is swinging for very nice numbers, and since that power-up lasts until the end of the turn, that will power up both of his attacks as well. So still a very, very important offensive card in this deck. So next up, we have 3 copies of Flower of Ruined Castle Impalza. And yes, there is a I guess you'd call it a misprint in this game. It does say Blossom of Ruined Castle on the card data side. It's supposed to be Flower, you know, English Bushi, gonna English Bushi. But anyway, she has an auto ability that's active when she's on the front row rearguard circle. That says when you Soul Blast 4 or more at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability. If your unit did not stand by a card's ability this turn, you may stand this unit. And if you stand this unit at the end of that turn, you can retire this unit to choose a grade 2 or greater unit card from your soul and put it into your hand. So this is the second restanding rearguard that I just mentioned that we have added to this deck now. So between the 3 copies of her and the 3 copies of Rockar Gore, you have 6 restanders in total in the deck now, as opposed to just 4. So you can much more consistently get your 5 attacks in per turn. Plus it's also a little less resource heavy now, since before to get the 5 attacks you had to have 2 copies of Rockar Gore in the front row to restand, both of which would cost a counterblast. However, now you can have 1 copy of Rockar Gore and 1 copy of Impalza, and since Impalza restands herself for free, then you only need 1 counterblast to get your full 5 attacks in now. Now, the only drawback to that is that Impalza doesn't increase her own power in any way, like Rockar Gore does, so she's not going to be hitting as big of numbers. And also, due to the way that it's worded, if you have 2 copies of Impalza in your front row, you'll only be able to restand one of them, since she can only restand herself if you haven't already stood a card by another ability this turn. So, if you have 2 copies of her, you won't be able to get the full 5 attacks. You do have to have 1 of her and 1 of Rockar Gore. Or 2 Rockar Gores still, I guess. But it's better to have 1 Rockar Gore and 1 of her. In which case you do want to resolve Impalza's skill first to restand herself, and then resolve Rockar Gore's skill in order to restand him, since he doesn't care if you've already restood a unit or not. But still, overall, it does make it a lot more easier for you to get that higher attack count every turn. Now, as for the second part of this ability, where you can retire her at the end of that turn to add a grade 2 or greater from your soul to hand, that's a bit more of a situational ability, actually. I use it sometimes, but you have to retire her to use it, so you're giving up one of your restanders, so unless you already have another copy of her or another Rockar Gore in your hand ready to go, you might not want to do that. And you can only grab a grade 2 or greater from your soul into hand, so really the best target for that is just another copy of Drajeweled in order to get your Persona Ride off next turn, if you don't have a Persona Ride copy already ready to go. So, situationally it can be helpful, but a lot of times I'd rather just keep her out of my board in order to potentially have her restand again next turn. Now, if you're playing against a control deck and you know that she's going to get wiped off your board anyway, then you might as well go ahead and go for it. But, you know, other than that, that ability is only used every now and then. So next we have 2 copies of Cranium Burner. So he has an auto ability that says when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Drajeweled in his card name, this unit gets power plus 2,000 until end of that battle. And at the end of that battle, if you Soul Blast 4 or more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn, you can retire this unit and countercharge 1. So this is the new countercharge engine for this deck, so that can help with your resources. Again, it ain't quite as counterblast heavy, thanks to Impalza not, you know, requiring us to do 2 counterblast every turn just to get our 5 attacks. So it's not as bad on resources, but still having this option to refund some of those counterblasts can be very nice. Plus he powers himself up by 2k when he attacks. So if you have an 8k booster behind him, that will put him to a 20k column, which will be magic numbers against your opponent's Vanguard once you reduce their power to 1. So he can help in that regard as well. The only real drawback to this card is that he is competing for front row space with both of your restanders. So if you want to use him, you will only be able to max out at 4 attacks that turn. However, if depending on the situation and how many resources you have, you might not be able to get the 5 attacks anyway. So in those situations, it could be better to use him to get that resource recursion instead of the extra offense. So a option for this deck that I still very much like having. So then lastly for the grade 2s, we have 1 copy of the Blitz Order Shining Selfishness. So you can play this with a Soul Blast 4, and it lets you choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle for each card in your damage zone. So this is the spicy tech that I talked about before. I used this combo before, and I did keep it in this deck. It's potentially up to a 25k shield if you're at 5 damage, but that's not the main advantage of this card. There's a really funny combo you can pull off with this card and Botus. Since this card Soul Blast 4 during your opponent's turn, that will trigger Botus' ability, and you can use his skill to retire one of your opponent's rearguards during their battle phase. So if you use those in combination, you can potentially retire one of your opponent's units before they even attack. So that can drastically cripple their offense for that turn. If you use it on the rearguard that is attacking for that battle will just be cancelled out too. So at that point, it wouldn't even matter how much defense this card gives you. So this card is just there for sort of that niche play. Now you do have to end your turn with 4 cards in your soul in order to pay the cost for this card. And you still have to be careful to not, screw yourself out of being able to use Drajeweled skill next turn. So it's a little bit situational when you can pull that off, but it's so funny when you do manage to pull it off that I just think it's hilarious. So I did keep this in. If you want to drop this and replace it with a 4th copy of Rock Hardcore or whatever else you want to run, you can feel free to do that. It's just that I love pulling off that combo so much that I had to keep it in. So that is all the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we got 2 copies of Power Gem Dragon. So his auto ability says when this unit boosts, if you Soul Blast 4 or more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn, you can Counterblast 1 to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose the 1 card from among them, put it into your hand, and put the rest into your soul. So a +1 to your hand and a +1 to your soul, semi-selective since you get to check the top 2 and put whichever one you want into either place. So it can help not only refuel your soul to keep paying Drajeweled's cost, but also get some card advantage in your hand. Now, once again, it is a Counterblast cost, so, mind those resources. But it can be a pretty decent draw engine for the deck, while also helping with that resource recursion. So I still like running it as a 2-of. So next up, we have 4 copies of Falcate Performer. So its auto ability says when this unit boosts, you choose up to 1 card from your drop, and if your soul does not have a card with the same grade as that card, put it into your soul. So this is the primary way to cycle cards of different grades back into our soul. Lets you grab anything from your drop and put it into your soul if you don't have a card with the same grade already in there. So if you're missing any specific grade, you can go ahead and grab one from your drop. So I especially like putting this card behind my Vanguard, since you could potentially resolve Falcate's skill first if you only have 3 of the 4 grades in your soul that you need. You can resolve Falcate and put the last one in, and then Soul Blast them all out for Drajeweled skill without missing any of your timing. Otherwise, if you already have all 4 in your soul, then you can resolve Drajeweled skill first, and then use Falcate to potentially put one of those right back in there. So one of the most important cards in the deck, helping you keep that soul count up without, eating through your deck any faster and potentially causing deck out problems. So yeah, absolutely fantastic card. So next up, we have 2 copies of Steamskara Zargon. So her auto ability says when this unit boosts, you can choose a unit boosted by this unit, and it gets a new auto ability until end of turn. That says when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, you choose up to 2 cards from your drop and put them into your soul. So this card is very similar to Falcate, letting you put cards from drop into soul. Now, this one does have to have that unit's attack hit in order for it to go off, so it's a little less consistent than Falcate, since your opponent can, of course, just block that attack. But if it does go off, it gets you 2 cards into your soul, and it doesn't have to be, cards of grades that you don't already have in there, like Falcate is. It can let you put anything you want. So, very helpful at helping build up your soul. Now it does become useless late game, once they're already at 5 damage. Obviously the attack isn't going to hit at that point, unless you're about to win anyway. So at that point it would be moot. But early game especially, this can be a very nice card. And if you put this card behind one of your restanding rearguards, since it grants the ability until end of turn. Once they restand and attack again, both their attacks will have that on hit pressure. So it can be very nice combo with either Impalza or Rock Argor in order to try to force your opponent to block both those attacks in order to keep you from getting any of your resources back. So not as consistent as Falcate Performer, but still a useful card in building up that soul. So the only other grade ones we have are our Sentinels. So first off, we have 3 copies of Recusal Hate Dragon, just your standard Perfect Guard, as well as the 1 copy of the Nationless Blitzorder Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that is all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have the trigger lineup, which is 7 crits, 4 draws, 4 heals, and 1 over. So starting first with the crits, we have 3 copies of Connected Rampage Klin, just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we have 4 copies of Stem Deviate Dragon. So, auto ability, at the end of battle this unit boosted, you can put this unit into your soul to choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn. So this can be just another way to get a grade 0 into your soul if you're missing one at the moment. You can just have him boost and shove him in there. So next for the draws, we have 4 copies of Rouse Wildmaster Riley. So your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, shield plus 5,000. So you're a 10k shield. Draw trigger. Then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Caper Companion, just the vanilla heal. Of course, if you want to run any effect heals, you can. And then lastly, for the over trigger, we have 1 copy of Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment, Galmageheld. So his additional effect gives you an ability that says during your turn, all of your Vanguards get power plus 10,000, critical plus 1 until end of this fight. So a permanent crit to your Vanguard. You don't have to run this over trigger if you'd rather run one of the nationless over triggers. It's pretty much just player preference, whichever one you would prefer. But I am just sticking with this one since, especially if you check this early, that extra crit pressure from this ability on top of the crit pressure from Drajeweled's inherent skill can make your center column very, very threatening, especially with the power reduction on your opponent's Vanguard. So I am just sticking with Galmageheld. So that is the deck, so we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And we'll fight Taizo this time, I think. And we will be going second. And we'll swap a crit for a crit. Alright, so we'll discard one of those crits to ride. And our starter skill lets us drop. So then I am just going to go ahead and attack. And he gets a draw trigger. And he operates Fry Shuts to reduce our Vanguard's power by 5k. So we'll go ahead and let that one through. And he gets another draw trigger. And we get a heal trigger that is wasted, unfortunately. Alright, so we'll discard Bodis to ride Jewel Neil. And then Jewel Core's ability will let us call him from the soul, and we'll put him in the front row. So then we'll go ahead and call Falcate Performer behind the Vanguard. And I think I'll just go ahead and attack. So we will attack with the Vanguard first. And Falcate's ability will let us put Botus into our soul. And he did let that through, so Jewel Neil's ability will trigger as well. So we'll use Jewel Neil's ability to go ahead and soul charge one. And we soul charged a grade 0. So then we can attack with Jewel Core. And his skill will give him an extra 5k. And he guards. And then Jewel Core will return to our soul. And he uses Iskra to operate his product, so that will reduce our Vanguard's power again. While also increasing his Vanguard's power. And then he'll operate it once more. So our power is at 0, and his is very high, but this is the only attack he's getting this turn, so I'm just going to let this one through. And he gets another draw trigger, wow. Alright, so we will discard. Yeah, we'll drop one of these crits. Right, Drajeweled. And Jewel Neil's skill will let us soul charge and draw. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and call Rockar Gore over here. And then we'll call Impalza over there. And then we'll drop Power Gem behind Impalza. And with that, I think we are all set up. We do have one of each grade in our soul. So we will just go ahead and attack with Rockar Gore first. And we'll use his ability to gain 10k. So then we'll attack with Impalza, boosted by Power Gem, which we won't get to use Power Gem's ability this turn since we haven't Soul Blasted yet, but that's fine. And he gets a crit trigger, but that is actually wasted because we're about to reduce his power to 1 anyway. Because we're going to attack with Drajeweled, boosted by Falcate. And we want to resolve Drajeweled's ability first. And we Soul Blast 4 with different grades. So we'll do 0, 1, 2, and 3. And his power is reduced to 1, and we gain a crit. So then we'll resolve Falcate's ability. And let's see, our soul has one grade 0 and one grade 3 in it. So we will go ahead and grab that grade 2 and put it back into the soul. So next we want to resolve Impal's ability to restand her. And then we'll resolve Rock Argor's ability to counterblast and restand him as well, as he perfect guards. So next we'll attack with Impalza. Oh, and he lets that one through. And he gets another crit trigger. That is not wasted this time. But we can still potentially hit with Rock Argor, so we'll attack once again. And he guards. But he had to use up 2 5k shields to do that, so he probably doesn't have much to guard within his hand right now. So we could use Impalza's retire ability here, but I'm actually not going to. And he does get his Persona Ride. So Fryshuts can replace itself with Fryshuts Maximum, which he does twice. And then Iskra will let him go ahead and operate his product. So retired Rock Argor and reduced our power. And he went ahead and called Maximum to rearguard. So he will get his full 4 attacks this turn. So let's see. I'll go ahead and let that one through. So once again he operates Maximum, and he retires Falcade Performer, and reduces our Vanguard's power once again. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this one through too. And I think I'll let that one through as well, actually. And we'll get a draw trigger. So that gets us back to where we started at 13. So I still am going to have to go ahead and perfect guard that one. And let's see, we'll discard. And we'll drop Bodus. So then both has maximums return to the order zone. So now we can go ahead and Persona Ride. And fortunately we drew another Falcate, so we'll go ahead and call him back behind our Vanguard. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use Drajeweled's activate ability, so we will counterblast one. And we will soul charge 2. And they were different grades, so we will get to draw one. So then I will go ahead and call another copy of Rock Argor over there. And I think we are ready to go. So we will go ahead and attack with Impalza first, not boosted this time.
Vanguard にアタック。
And he guards. So then we'll attack with Rock Argor.
Vanguard にアタック。
And we'll use his ability
スキル発動。パワープラ
to
ス。
gain another 10k. Oh, and he perfect guards. So he's only got 2 cards in his hand, and we got 3 more attacks. So I think we're gonna get him this turn. So then we can attack with Drajeweled, boosted by
ヴァンガード
Falcate.
にアタック。
And again, we want to resolve Drajeweled first. So we will Soul Blast out a 0, 1, 2, and 3.
この勝負、私に分がありそうね。スキル発動。
So his power goes to 1, and we gain a crit. And then we'll resolve Falcate's ability.
発動。
And once again, let me check my soul real fast. We got a grade 3 and a grade 0. So we will add that grade 2 right back again. So next we want to resolve Impalza
スキル
first
発動。
to restand her. And then resolve Rock Argor to counterblast
スキル発動。
and restand him. Oh, and he perfect guards again. And he doesn't have to discard this time since he's only got 1 card in his hand.
ドライブチェック。
Alright, so now we'll attack with Impalza, boosted this time by Power Gem.
アタック。
And now we can use Power Gem's ability to
ス
counterblast.
キル発動。
And we look at the top 2, and we can put 1 to hand and 1 to soul, so we'll put that perfect guard into our hand. And he lets this one through. And we got him with that one.
やった。次も負けないから。
So there you go, that was version 2 of my Drajeweled deck. Like I said, a pretty basic upgrade for the deck, basically just letting you do what you could do before, except better. So, still a very nice upgrade. I do like the way this deck plays now. So, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. Next up, I'll be doing version 1 of my Drajeweled Mask deck, actually, a different variant of this deck. So, until then, I guess that's all for this video. So, lots of luck to you and yours.